Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special webcast celebrating National Travel and Tourism Week. Tourism isn't just about vacations. It is the economic engine that drives Southeast Louisiana, supporting thousands of jobs and fueling our local businesses. Today, we are sitting down with three key leaders who help keep that engine running smoothly. Please welcome Terry Burkell, Vice President of Marketing and COO of Visit Jefferson Parish, Walt Leger III, President and CEO of New Orleans & Company, and Corey Rosales, President and CEO of New Orleans Tours, representing the vital transportation and tour sector that keeps our visitors moving safely. Okay, thank you all for being here. Let's dive right in. So for all of you, the big picture. As we celebrate National Travel and Tourism Week, how would you describe the current state of the union for tourism in the greater New Orleans region? Let's start with you, madam.
Well, for us in Jefferson Parish, we feel like we've had a strong first quarter. We've seen just a little over 1 million visitors. Looking at the leisure and leisure group being on an uptick, as well as the industries indicating that meetings and events are showing an upward climb. We feel good. We feel good. We think we're positioned to see a strong year and moving into 27. Very optimistic.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Jefferson Parish.
Yeah, sure is.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Leger, what do you think?
Yeah, look, thank you for having us. This is a great platform to be able to talk about such a vital part of our economy. The travel industry for our nation is a $3 trillion economic impact, 15 million jobs associated with the travel industry. And ultimately, as you said, it's not just about vacation. It's about every aspect of our economy. I mean, travel is required for a lot of the business that gets conducted. And so our community is particularly grateful to the leisure travelers who come in for vacations, but also for the business travelers who come in for conferences, conventions, and meetings, which really form such a strong foundation for our visitor economy. In the greater New Orleans area, it's about 85,000 jobs. Last year in the MSA, the New Orleans MSA, it was about $10.8 billion spent on travel to our region. So obviously really critical. Q1 was a little challenging for New Orleans as we kicked off this year in 2026 because we often are comparing ourselves to the previous year. And Q1 of 2025 was the Super Bowl, of course, and National Auto Dealers Association meeting, which is one of the biggest and most important meetings anywhere in America in that time frame. So year over year, a little bit challenging. Q2, though, has been spectacular. And one of the trends that we see really emerging is the return of regional visitation, which is something that had been lagging over the last several years as we came out of COVID. So for events like Mardi Gras, for events like Jazz Fest, for French Quarter Fest and others, we saw a really sizable increase, 5, 6, 7 points on more regional visitation returning to the city. And so that's something I think we're really proud of. This year in 2026, we're hosting 8 major medical conferences. We've already hosted the orthopedic surgeons and the cardiologists, but we've got a number of other groups coming in, including the hematologists in December. That meeting's so massive, there are 2 charter flights that come in from Paris on Air France. So talking about 25,000 people just for that event. Really spectacular meeting, and all those things are shaping up to be a really strong 2026, and I think feeling very optimistic about that regional return, and we're hoping that we can keep building momentum over the summer months to bring those folks into the city for a variety of events, but also just to visit.
Absolutely. Yeah. My wife is a hematologist. She's looking forward to
yeah,
the
it's an amazing event. We've been partners with this company, this organization, the American Society of Hematology, for many decades now. The impact on our community is just massive. We hear about Super Bowls, we hear about Sugar Bowls and Jazz Fest and the economic impact. We estimate that this one meeting has about $115 million economic impact.
Unreal.
So that tells a story about conventions, conferences, and meetings that is just so significant. We're happy to have smaller meetings too. Our team works to bring in 10-person meetings, but 25,000 person meetings have such a dramatic impact on the economy, and we're thrilled to continue to partner with them in 26 and also into the future.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Rosales.
Yep. So the state of tourism for us it's kind of at a high at the moment, coming off of French Quarter Fest, Jazz Fest, Zurich Classic, with other events. Conventions are coming back into the city after the pandemic, and outside of that, we're also seeing a lot of small groups that are really wanting to immerse themselves into the city, not just show up, what's your top restaurant, and then leave. They want to actually get involved with the culture, which is what we have that other cities don't have.
Right.
Everybody has tourism, but they don't have the New Orleans culture.
Right.
That's right.
Very true. Very true. So, locals and tourists alike, a major talking point right now is community impact. Can you talk about how making our region a better place to live, to learn and work simultaneously makes it a better place to visit? And let's start with
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as that goes, community impact, the more that the city can bring in outside tourism helps promote internal growth, whether it's creating more jobs, more tax revenue for the city, promoting those small businesses and family-owned businesses in the city that need that tourism to be here, and that's their driving factor to keep things moving, right? So building in that infrastructure to the city to where we can bring in large-scale events and have those events are big for, the locals here.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that it doesn't get celebrated enough about our community is that people who are creative, who create music, who create arts, who create things that they can share with the world are able to do that in a way that allows them to live and work in their passions, and not necessarily just have to have a job, but have a job that is something that they really truly thrive on.
Yeah.
And that happens largely because we're able to attract about 19 million visitors into our city of 385,000 people,
Right.
and support the restaurants and the galleries and the various community businesses that can survive in a world where they have 19 million visitors, but not necessarily in a world where they only have 385,000 residents. And so we take our role in attracting visitors to the city very, very seriously. And we obviously feel like it is also a welcome mat for so many others to do things like attend our universities, invest in businesses, and invest in growing the economy here. How many prominent business leaders did we attract for Jazz Fest over the last 2 weeks? I mean, social media posts alone, multiple billionaires saying that they were here because they love Jazz Fest, they love the music, they love the art, they love the culture of the city, and that nowhere else is like it. And so we've got to continue to find ways, though, to make this place the greatest place it could be to live, work, learn, and therefore visit. And I think the trends that we're seeing with city leadership and really focusing on infrastructure investment, working on improvements to things like sewage and water board, I mean, we've got to be a great place to live first.
Yeah.
And I think staying focused on that makes it a compelling and amazing place to visit. But minus that, you can't be a great tourist destination. And so I think really being focused on how we deliver on the basics: clean, safe, and quality infrastructure, so that people can thrive here and live here and be happy here. That will keep us as one of the most unique and most remarkable destinations anywhere in America and on the planet. And without it, you just struggle to compete. So I think we've got to remember that. We've got to stay focused on it. We've certainly worked with our partners at Visit Jefferson and with other economic development leaders throughout the community as we've put together this Vision 2035 plan to try to stay really focused on the concept that best place to live, work, and learn, and invest, and therefore a great place to visit, not a great place to visit first.
Right.
Right.
All right.
And in Jefferson, I mean, I echo what both the gentlemen have said. And for us, it's very similar, where we see that we have the ability to really showcase the talents of those within our industry, whether it's the fishing industry, the seafood harvesting industry, but those more traditional musicians and events that the visitors love to come in and enjoy and be a part of the culture. And we're so closely related. As we say, we're neighboring New Orleans. We truly are neighboring New Orleans. Many of us in Jefferson have either grown up in New Orleans or vice versa. We have a vested interest, and to his point, as far as that regionalism, that relationship of coming together and understanding that you have to kind of get your own house in order first, and have that ability to say that we are ready to welcome others in and feel like we're in a very good place, and as we continue to work to be an even greater place, that's absolutely key in and bringing more in. And then to the point of business, where those who are coming in may look at us with those eyes and say, not only do I want to come there to have a great time, host my conference, or bring a family in for a visit, but, I'm looking at relocation. There's some viable conversations to be had there. So, yes, absolutely agree on both notes.
I run into people all the time who come here to visit or come here for school and relocate because they
Yeah.
love it here so much.
Oh, yeah.
That's always a real positive thing. So post-pandemic travel trends have shifted. What types of travelers are you seeing the most growth from right now, Jeff?
Well, in Jefferson, actually, we see growth with our visiting friends and relatives. And, during the COVID, we, like many others, turned some of our efforts inward to speak to our community, and not only letting them know or educate them on what we had here for them to see and do and places to eat, but also took that opportunity to say who we are as an organization, what we do, and why travel and tourism matters in Jefferson Parish. And I really think that those efforts really served as a catalyst to where we are now, as we're seeing that pay off. More of our residents got to know us, got more familiar with what Jefferson has to offer, and that we do as well have incoming visitors. It's not just about New Orleans. So we can have that kind of ebb and flow. And with that, they began to reach out and spread that word more. And we're starting to see that. And then, of course, our marketing efforts, we were able to kind of fine tune them to speak more to that audience. So we're starting to see the fruits of that effort come now.
All right.
So that is a growing. And, of course, our ecotourism continues to grow, and sports tourism, our youth sports tourism is absolutely growing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say youth sports
Yes,
is such a massive impact on the tourism economy in our southern region,
Yes.
but really across the country. And Jefferson Parish has some phenomenal attributes that make it a great place to host a lot of these youth sporting events. And then a lot of those folks come into New Orleans for a variety of events or even for hotel accommodations. And so that's certainly a place where we can continue to work together to try to attract major events to our region that are beneficial to both and also beneficial to the people who live here. Like that's another aspect of it. When you think about, prioritizing youth sporting venues, that means the kids who live here get the benefit of those facilities. And then you're also able to monetize that and economically benefit by hosting, tournaments and things on the weekends. And so, that's an area of travel that we see as very resistant to any other economic pressure. Because there's one thing that people are going to do, and that's going to be provide for their kids. And so if kids are traveling for sports, then that means families are traveling. And regardless of what else they have to kind of put on the side to be able to afford to do that, they're going to prioritize it because it's for their kids. And so that is a really resilient form of travel. We're seeing that too. I mean, the convention center, major 25,000 people coming in for volleyball tournaments and other events. So that's benefiting the city also. We're also seeing growth in what's called bleisure, like business leisure travel. So people who are coming here for a business trip or a convention, but extending that trip either before or after. Our cruise industry continues to thrive. New Orleans has one of the more unique offerings in that we have river cruises and also ocean-going cruises. That industry is incredibly resilient. People who cruise are dedicated to it, and they've never really backed off even during COVID. And so the rebound there is really strong. Of course, our conference business continues to grow. That's a highly competitive marketplace, but our team is out there hustling and trying to bring those events in. Those folks. They stay longer, they spend a little bit more, they've often got expense accounts and other things that allow that to happen. And so they also touch about 15 or 20 other small businesses when they're in town. They need transportation, they need security, they need audiovisual technicians, they need catering, they often buy out restaurants for events. And you've got exhibitors that go along with those attendees at the conferences. And then again, finally, we're seeing the return of the regional visitor, and that's showing up a lot with our, festivals and more leisure-related activities, but also just regular sort of regional travelers who are coming in for a gallery or for some other event. And then finally, events-driven travel is huge. We know Super Bowls are big, but at the end of the day, folks are making decisions about where they're going to travel based on specific events. It could be a concert, could be the Savannah Bananas. It could be any number of different things that people have an interest in. But it does feel like the trend is to make specific decisions around specific things of interest as opposed to just a vacation. Even vacations are becoming centered around specific events. And so we've got to continue to be hyper competitive in what we attract to the city, to the region, and to the state.
Yeah, I was real surprised at how the Amtrak, their new train from Mobile, is kind of sold out just for Saints games.
Well, we've actually seen some data in the last couple of days that shows some of the fastest growing markets for visitation, and Mobile is near the top of that list, not surprisingly. The train started about 8 months ago. We expected to have about 80,000 riders in the first year. We've already surpassed 100,000. So it's been really impactful, creating another mode of connectivity for us. And, we feel strongly that more connectivity is better. And any way that you can connect people, the economy grows, visitors, certainly we attract more visitors, but just economic connectivity along the Gulf Coast is a really positive thing. So we want to double down on that.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Rosales.
Yep. So I kind of have to play off of what they both said. On our side of things, you're getting those bi-leisure travelers, you're getting the sports groups, the youth groups, you're getting the big festival attendees and different things of that nature. And thankfully for us, as they're coming in due to the hard work that they're putting in, right, we get to benefit from that. So those people, but they're not just coming here to, okay, I have a conference, I'm just going to go to my conference and go home. No, they want to actually, like I said earlier, immerse themselves into the city. They're getting an opportunity to come to one of the most unique cities for work or for their child's travel, and they get to experience different things while they're here. So, we're a big driving factor for us is that, yes, they're booking us to help get them to places safely and on time, but also they're asking our booking crew, our drivers, where would you go eat? I don't want to know what I can Google it and say, oh, this is where I want to go. Where do the locals eat?
Exactly.
Where do the locals go to hang out? Where do you get that New Orleans experience? Not just your any day experience. We want to actually experience the city, experience the food. So we're getting a lot of that interaction with those, and in those small groups that we're getting now, you have these entertainment groups that are booking numerous boutique hotels. So we're getting numerous moves from here to there to get them all back together, though, in one centralized location. So it's been a little different, but it's actually, pretty revitalizing to see people wanting to come back here, and safety is obviously a big concern, but it's not a concern as much anymore as it was in the past. The outside world is starting to see that it's safe to come here, and we have something that no one else has to offer. So come and join and experience it.
That's awesome. So, Ms. Burkell, so the great outdoors. How is Visit Jefferson Parish leveraging assets like Grand Isle, Grand Isle, the Barrier Terrier Preserve, and the Louisiana Oyster Trail to attract outdoor and culinary tourists?
Well, we all know Louisiana is known for its culinary scene, right? And Jefferson is no exception to that. Really, post BP oil spill, we recognized our oyster industry. And of course, we made the decision, or we took the opportunity to educate the public that the seafood was safe and that our restaurants were open and ready to serve. And that, coupled with that industry in mind, hence the Louisiana Oyster Trail was born. And that program is our lead kind of marketing program for culinary, but it also serves for ecotourism as well as environmental. Right. So there's kind of that learning curve, and when we invite those visitors in, and even our locals, to enjoy the oysters, some of the best in the world, right? Louisiana oysters, they're also going to get just a little bit, they'll get kind of immersed in what's that all about and what is the meaning behind that. It's so much more than just that fantastic meal. Outdoors, obviously Jefferson Parish is just has phenomenal outdoor. You mentioned Grand Isle. Grand Isle has 7 miles of sandy beach where one can experience kind of your traditional beach getaway, but you also can experience some unique assets such as maybe throwing in some crabbing, maybe an offshore fishing excursion. Obviously, there's some fun to be had with the locals in a crab boil or a fish fry. And then there's the state park, which is located inside of Grand Isle, with miles of nature trails and birding trails. So that, coupled with some of the best fishing in the world, which brings me to the fact that from about right now, the late winter, early spring, all the way through the fall is really peak season for fishing in Grand Isle. There's tournaments or rodeos just about every week in
Yeah, I've
Grand
been down
Isle.
there for the tarpon rodeo.
So that's a
It's
big
pretty
one.
cool.
That's the granddaddy of them all. So that coupled with the Barataria Preserve, as you mentioned, that in and of itself is a multifaceted attraction. Just the sheer beauty of the Bayou Barataria, and then you throw in the aspect of the ecotourism and kind of the folklore with the locals and the stories of the infamous pirate Jean Lafitte and his ties all the way to the Battle of New Orleans. So there's a lot of fun there, and then you just go right down to just the pure fun that a family or an individual can have with the thrill of an airboat ride.
Yeah.
So we have the ability to take all of those and market to very niche, specific markets, but we can also look at that and just simultaneously market that to families and individuals who are just looking for a great way to have a good time outdoors. And again, we recognize that we're right next door to New Orleans, so it's a great complement. Those families or individuals traveling and staying in New Orleans, they have their all of the beautiful amenities they have there. They can come over into Jefferson and enjoy some of that, outdoor experiences.
Absolutely.
Or some of that great seafood along our oyster trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we touched on this a little bit earlier about Jefferson Parish and youth sports.
Oh, yeah.
So how important is that niche to your strategy, and what infrastructure improvements are helping to drive it?
Extremely important. Visit Jefferson Parish has advocated for infrastructure for probably nearly 2 decades. So we were so excited to see the infrastructure, including the new Bayou Sidneck Sports Complex, which is being managed by Bayou Nation, as it's truly a game changer for both Jefferson Parish and the region. It's an area where tournaments can all be housed in one site. There's 4 multi-purpose fields that convert into 8 baseball fields. So that facility, along with the enhancements of the soccer complex at Lafreniere Park, as well as numerous parks and recreational facilities throughout Jefferson Parish, along with the unique venues such as NOLA Motorsports Park, really that coupled with a very robust collection of hotels and restaurants and attractions puts us top of mind when those coordinators or teams are coming together to decide on a destination. So having those families travel is of the utmost importance, as family tourism aligns right along with our tourism strategy, our overall tourism strategy, as we are a family-friendly destination.
Right.
It's extremely important.
All right. So let me move over to Mr. Leger and cultural preservation versus tourism. So New Orleans relies heavily on its authentic culture. I think I saw James Carville talk about the Super Bowl coming here, and when he described it, he said, if it goes to another city, you're just going to another city. When you come into New Orleans, you come into a whole different culture. So how does New Orleans and Company balance driving tourism with protecting the local culture and the quality of life for the residents?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think it's a challenging one. I mean, the Super Bowl presents a great example to kind of talk about this. And so, what's tough about the Super Bowl is that no matter how much you focus on ensuring that there's an authentic New Orleans experience, there's ultimately only a handful of people who get the spotlight, right? And so John Batiste and some of the big names end up being the ones who are on the field, and they get to perform, and they get to show the world what authentic New Orleans music and culture is about. I mean, we had Queen Taj, though, that we were able to bring in this year from the Black Masking Indian tradition who designed the logo for the Super
Right.
Bowl. I mean, we really infused as much as we could into that. And yet you still sort of have people in the community who are like, well, I didn't get to be a part of that. And, but what we're doing is creating this global platform for the elevation of those art forms. And then you see those things play out over time. So soon we'll have Damon Melançon at the Venice Biennale, which is one of the largest art exhibitions on the planet, and he'll be demonstrating and showing his suits that he has designed and that have become an art form that he's now showing in galleries. We are able to attract, attention from 60 Minutes, who just did an amazing show on the tradition and the art forms that are created, and that creates an opportunity for these groups to come in and say, immerse me in this.
Yeah.
Show me what is happening. Help me support this and figure out how to understand and engage with these incredible cultural experiences that are unique to our region. And so the big events create sort of a platform and a megaphone to push that out. The smaller events create the infrastructure to support that in a broader way. And then we work through our website and through other social media channels to keep elevating. So we've created this musicians database where every musician in the city can have a microsite on NewOrleans.com. And what we felt like that was doing was creating opportunities for people to book gigs, to be put into a variety of different situations to be able to earn and achieve, but also to market and promote themselves. We feel like our reach and our ability is to keep elevating that for everyone that we can. And then when we get the major global events, the major conventions, the major conferences, finding a way to elevate someone so that those art forms get elevated, but very intentional on how we try to elevate those specific people who are achieving great things, with the hope that we create many, many opportunities for many more that follow. And I think we're seeing that play out through a variety of different media sources. Our PR team works really hard to host media from all over the world, particularly influencers and others in social media now, to be able to keep promoting those authentic cultural moments. Jazz Fest is another one. I mean, it's about as authentic as you can get in a setting like that with almost 500,000 people. But it's something that I think our community, our whole region, all of South Louisiana is really proud of. And it takes intentionality, though, because, it certainly can get away from you. And I think losing our authenticity would be losing our superpower.
Yeah.
We are not the biggest city. We do not have the biggest corporate support. The people we compete with are much bigger, much more well-funded. We've got to rely on authenticity and on hard work to be able to compete with the big boys.
Yeah. And, one of the things that New Orleans and Company always says that I say is New Orleans is built to host.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how we are able to do that with such the size that we are.
I think it's a testament to the people of our whole region, right?
Yeah,
like we say New
absolutely.
Orleans, but I mean, like, we really, I think, cherish the opportunity to welcome people into our homes, into our community, and we share it with them. What I hear from a lot of people is when I come to New Orleans, I don't feel like I'm there to see something. I feel like I'm there to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And I think that our people make that the case. But I think, to your point, the reason Built to Host feels right and is right is that you can be as hospitable as you want. You can be as welcoming as you want. People will feel that. But if you don't have the infrastructure, if you don't have the right venues, the right professionals, the right equipment, the right partners throughout the community that are excellent at what they do, like if the transportation's not on time, if the event doesn't get produced well, then they're not coming back.
Right.
A lot of these groups that are coming here for conventions and conferences, they rely on these annual meetings for 85% of their revenue. It's how they support the operations of their whole association.
Yeah.
And so that event needs to be crisp. It needs to be excellent in its execution. And I think sometimes our community doesn't get enough credit for being excellent at delivering on these events. I think we get credit for being unique and special and fun and celebratory, but I think it's important that we also celebrate the excellence at which we execute on these things. It's what really sets us apart and makes us super competitive.
Yeah. So coming off of recent mega events, and we touched on this a little bit, what's the strategy for keeping the city competitive for future conventions, sporting events, and international flights?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not growing, if you're not evolving, then you're not competing.
Right.
And our neighbors in Texas and elsewhere are investing tens of billions of dollars in new convention centers, new hotels, and other things. We similarly need to be able to invest. I mean, we recently invested heavily in modifications and renovations at the Superdome. Really proud of a 50-year-old building. There's so many cities that have built 2 stadiums in 50 years and knocked down stadiums.
Yeah.
Us, being who we are and preserving our culture and our history, I think it's a real kudos to our community for investing and keeping the Superdome competitive. That's got to work. The Smoothie King Center, similar, needs to be upgraded. We've got to build this new Omni Hotel over at the Convention Center. It's the first major hotel development in almost 45 years. Other cities are kind of catching up. 45 years ago, there were maybe 7 or 8 cities that really competed for conferences and conventions. There are like 35 or 40 now that have major convention centers and major hotels. We've got to continue to evolve those offerings. What that does with a new hotel over there is you get a real headquarter hotel at the convention center with 1,000 rooms that makes us competitive for the next Super Bowl. But it also requires that many of our other properties that are a little bit older invest heavily to compete.
Right.
And so rising tide lifts all boats there. So, infrastructure is critical for us to be able to compete.
Can we compete to the Texas level, the tens of billions of dollars that you made reference to?
I don't think we have to because we're not them. And we do have the authenticity, we do have the culture, we do have the foundation of this. And furthermore, we've got 100 years of being a major gathering place for major conferences and conventions. And so we have an excellence at which we deliver on this. So we don't necessarily have to be spending $10 billion, but we do have to find ways to evolve and compete. And so while they're building new stadiums in cities all over America, I think we recognize we can't really afford to spend $4 billion on a stadium, so we better renovate it really highly effectively. Yeah. And similarly, in most cities, they would knock down the Smoothie King Center and build a new $2 billion stadium. I think that's a difficult thing for a state like Louisiana and a city like New Orleans to foot the bill on, but we've got to be creative in these public-private partnerships. Ultimately, the Omni Hotel deal is $550 million of private investment up front in cash from Omni, and then some long-term incentives tied to that. But without the building of the structure, you're never going to generate those incentives to begin with.
Right.
And so I think we've got to be creative about that. The states have got some new things on infrastructure bank that they're trying to create. Our region's going to have to be, thoughtful. We're going to have to pursue federal support. Last week we had Secretary Duffy from the U.S. Department of Transportation in. We talked about expansion at the airport, new regional transit opportunities, more connectivity throughout the region. That's going to create workforce opportunity, housing opportunity, and affordability will increase, and other things can come from that. But when we work together, we can really win. And I know in both Jefferson Parish and in New Orleans right now, we've got 2 leaders in Cynthia Lee Shang and Helena Moreno, who have already had multiple meetings together in public to talk about infrastructure investment and collaboration. And, similarly with our industry, when we can work together, we can win. In most places, New Orleans and Jefferson Parish would be one place.
Yeah.
We just, when we're together, we're more than 1 million people. And we're a much more competitive region than when we're 450,000 and 385,000, separated. So it's great when we can all work together. I think that's the key to the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving on to Rosales, logistics and moving the masses. So American Safety handles a massive amount of ground transportation for tours and corporate events. What are the unique logistical challenges of safely moving large groups through a historic region like ours?
Yeah, so as we're all aware, right?
Big question.
The French Quarter is a very unique area, and not just here, but in the entire world. Well, when the French Quarter was built, it was not built for large motor coaches or large vehicles in general to be able to go through there. Well, your big events like conventions and whatnot, they're trying to move a lot of people at once, and they don't want 50 different vehicles, right? They want one. Well, that's a slight issue, right? To be able to maneuver through there. So our team searched high and wide of what can we do. Obviously, we can't rebuild all the streets, right? So we have to find another way to do it. Right. So we partnered up with a European-based manufacturer, Temsa, which has these 34-passenger mini coaches. French Quarter approved. We can get in and out. We can move 30-plus people at one time, right? So rather than having a black car that has 5 people in it, you have 34 people that can still do exactly what that car does going through the French Quarter. So logistically, that has helped solve some issues. Outside of that, it's just planning, really. We have those big events, working with the local communities, the local authorities of, okay, we know you're going to have 30, 40,000 people coming in. How are we going to get those people around? How are we safely going to get them around, but still give them that experience? Our city is it's a walking city, as a lot of people would say. But unfortunately, when it's storming, raining outside in this area, which is quite often, a lot of people don't want to walk.
Yeah.
Which rightfully so. So, yeah, I mean, doing those different partnerships, finding those different assets that we can have that are, just as nice as your full-size motor coach with your restrooms in it, we can still do that and get through the French Quarter.
Wow. All right. So, your drivers and guides are often some of the very first locals that visitors interact with. And I think you touched on this earlier as well. What are you hearing on the ground right now? What is the number one piece of feedback guests share during their rides?
Yeah, so we're hearing a lot about, I touched on one earlier about safety concerns in the past. A lot of that is going away. A lot of the things we're hearing now was, our drivers and our local meet and greet teams are your first liaison that they see whenever they touch down at the airport or come off of one of those cruises to go get beignets in the city, right? So they're just wanting to understand, like I said earlier, where can we go to get, some people are only here for a short stint at a time. Where can we go to get the best experience? What is the city doing that's different? A lot of things we hear is that the city's a lot cleaner now. People are loving that. They're loving that they can walk around and it just feels cleaner. It looks cleaner, it presents better. We hear that all the time because, there's things out there, and when people come in, they're like, oh, we hear the city's not, it's not clean. It's not this. It's not that. They come, when they leave, they're like, whatever I heard, totally false. It was absolutely immaculate. And, our drivers and whatnot are those first liaisons, and they relay that back to us, and, we try to relay it back out to those community partners of, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Yeah. So how has the transportation sector had to adapt its fleet or services recently to meet the changing expectations of moderate corporate and leisure travel?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we said about adapting was different types of vehicles to be able to get, more accessibility. A lot of things now are also AI driven. You have a lot of corporate partners that are using AI to book trips. Where do we go? What do we do? Who do we see? Type of deal. So, we've dove into using AI as well on what platforms we can as far as bookings, dispatching and things. Another thing, like I mentioned earlier, safety is a big thing. So we've adapted to have AI in all of our vehicles to where, we're giving that real-time tracking to those corporate partners of, if you're responsible for thousands of people, you want to know where they're at all times. Or where is that asset that's coming to pick us up? What does that look like? So we've really dove into that side of the world and trying to help promote that and just, you got to be able to adapt. Like Walt said earlier, if you're not changing and keeping up with the times, you're not doing anything, right? So we've tried to do that as much as possible and just keep those newer assets on the street and show, the city's clean, assets are clean, come back.
Yeah. So, the hub and spoke model is vital to visitors might stay in New Orleans, take a swamp tour in Jefferson Parish, and rely on American safety to get them there. Can you talk about how your organizations collaborate, to make regional travel seamless?
Yes, sure, absolutely. And to your point, I think it's probably more critical than ever. The trend in travel is so much more towards the experience,
right.
And when the experience needs to be one that is robust and that is unique and that is an overall experience. And I think there was probably a time when people felt really strongly that they needed to attract people to New Orleans and keep them in the French Quarter and downtown because that was sort of where the bulk of the investment was and the experience was at that time. And I think with the evolution of the experiential traveler, we've really leaned into, particularly on the corporate sales and the convention sales side, really telling the whole story of the region. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that some of the best fishing on the planet is 45 minutes away from the city of New Orleans.
Right.
Growing up in regional, in the southeastern region of our state, I grew up in St. Bernard Parish, went to school in the city, and New Orleans is my home. But I recognize the value of the region in a way, just because of my own experiences. And so we very much are painting that picture for corporate travelers that you can have these really unique, eco-tourism experiences. We've leaned into engaging them in coastal restoration and teaching them about the hurricane protection because we learned that we were having a lot of trouble selling during a certain time of year, right, during the summer months. And so, when I first kind of got to New Orleans and Company and I heard some of the sales pitches, we were kind of trying to downplay the danger of hurricanes. And, I understood that, but I also felt like it wasn't successful because it just takes one, right? If I plan my meeting in August and there's one hurricane that comes on that date, then my meeting is destroyed. And so what we instead have really leaned into is, let's talk about the hurricane risk reduction system. Let's talk about the cutting edge technology that's been used to build that's actually made us one of the most prepared communities along the Gulf Coast. There are other cities that are exposed, and they don't have what we have. And so we've actually shown a lot of our scientific organizations, a lot of our medical organizations, some of the hurricane risk reduction system, they've been enthralled by it. It's interesting to them, but it also tells a story of, not just resiliency, but proactivity.
Right.
And that this is what we have done in response to, Hurricane Katrina and other risks. And so all of those things are very regional stories that we've leaned into to try to tell a broader story about what happens here in our city. We talk a lot more about the universities. We talk a lot more about the medical sector than I think we have in the past, and that's because we want people to understand that there's a lot of amazing things happening here, not just a great tourism destination, but a great city that's thriving in all these different sectors. And in return, I think we're seeing an uptick in business because of it, because people want to go to interesting places. And we are an interesting place because of our neighbors, because of the people that, live here, because of the creativity that just bubbles up from the street here. And all those things are a benefit to corporations. They're a benefit to associations. We explain to people that because this place is so rich in creativity and culture, it will open up your mind as you are working through your challenges and the issues that you're facing to tackle those things in new creative ways. And I think all of that just tells us a story of this really special place on the planet, and it makes us competitive in the tourism space, but hopefully it helps the people who live here feel a little bit better about living here. I mean, we are all blessed to call this place home. Because of these unique things that we get to do here. And I think we see that with major events, major festivals, and other things. But I don't think we can say it enough. I mean, all cities have challenges. And we have to keep perspective on the challenges that we've got and also recognize the upside of living in a community that's as incredible as the one we call home.
So what about Jefferson Parish? My neighbor went fishing off of Grand Isle a couple of days ago. Came back and presented me with fresh tuna that we had last night, and it was absolutely awesome.
That's a good neighbor.
Yes,
that's a
real
good
good
neighbor, right? Well, I mean, same. We visit Jefferson Parish, or those of us, right from our leadership to our organization, would visit Jefferson Parish. We don't view ourselves as competition to New Orleans. We're not New Orleans. We are a complement to New Orleans. And to your point, it's about sharing that regionalism, right? And the appreciation for what we have and what maybe our communities or individuals have created over decades and going back hundreds of years of what has been put into place. And we have all of these, as we talked about earlier, the outdoor amenities, as you just mentioned, the fishing in Grand Isle, but so many other aspects of Jefferson that are thriving. But, we don't shy away. We understand that the likelihood of someone visiting Jefferson is highly likely to visit New Orleans when they're in town. And in fact, we encourage it. I mean, New Orleans is like no other place on earth.
Yeah.
Why would we not encourage that, right? We enjoy it ourselves, and it's part of our overall culture and experience. So we want to share that with our visitors as well. So we recognize that working together, to not sound corny, but it is stronger. You are able to attract more, whether it's from the leisure aspect of things or bringing back, as I mentioned, those friends and family, bringing them home, per se, to see some of these new things that have been put in place, but they're still wrapped in our tradition and our culture. I mean, it's a win-win.
One of the things you mentioned Amtrak earlier, and I think this is really relevant. There were a lot of folks who were kind of like, I don't know how I feel about the Amtrak expansion. It may make people kind of go other places and like leave New Orleans, right? And, I never really believed that. I always feel like connectivity is going to benefit everyone.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about that is it really, it speaks to what you were just saying. We now have our partners in Mississippi and Alabama who are marketing New Orleans internationally because they recognize that the best chance they have of getting international visitors to Mobile or the Gulf Coast is to attract them to New Orleans and then convince them to get on a train for the day and go see their communities. And so, it really is a situation where if you're smart about this and you think about how to do it collaboratively, there's an upside for everyone. And do I think more people from New Orleans are going to Mobile now than did before the train? Yes.
Yes.
And I actually don't think that that's a bad thing. What I know is that more people from Mobile and the Gulf Coast are coming to New Orleans because the data is very clear on it.
Yeah.
And what I also know is there's now more international marketing for our community and for Louisiana because our neighbors recognize that the smart bet is let's bet on New Orleans and then we can try to get our piece of that. And so really it's about growing the pie and not fighting over the scraps of pie.
Yeah, right.
And that's what we've all got to do together. Keep growing the pie, and then everybody can have a piece, and we don't have to feel like we're still hungry.
Yeah.
We can keep growing together. So it's exciting to see that kind of collaborative approach, and we do that across the state as well with the lieutenant governor and with all of our partners at convention and visitors bureaus all over Louisiana. So it's let's all rise together situation.
Yeah. So we've mentioned infrastructure a few times. So to keep this synergy alive, infrastructure is key. So what regional developments, whether it's airport expansions, road infrastructure, or transit, are you keeping a close eye on? Let's start with Mr. Rosales there.
For us, the more that the city, both parishes, can invest in infrastructure and build some of those new hotels and expand to where we can bring in those larger events, it's a direct benefit to us, right? We're able to move more people around. So just those infrastructures, the roadway infrastructures that the city has taken a front course effort on, right, to do helps with our equipment as well, keeping it as it can move around a little safer, a little easier, helps preserve that equipment for longer term use.
Right. Well,
Yeah, airport expansion is really critical.
Yeah.
We can't possibly that can't grow enough.
Yeah.
We need more flights. We need more. We need more international flights. Whatever we can get, we want. Very exciting to see the launch of the 20-year master plan, which is showing growth, but also planning for it. That airport is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's been ranked as one of the top of its size anywhere in North America many years in a row now. We had a lot of visitors in, special VIP kind of guests that we've had in the last couple of weeks that hadn't seen it before, and were really, just amazed at it. It is a really important economic driver, not just for visitation, but just in general for our region. So we need to keep growing there. We do need new investment in transit. I think we know that we have some affordability, challenges with housing in our region. And the truth is that transit helps with all of that. It also helps with job opportunities, whether you're working in the hospitality sector or you're working for Ochsner or LCMC or any of the other healthcare partners in the community, or the universities or the government itself. More connectivity is just healthier for a community. You can only expand the roadways so much.
Yeah.
And so getting that right and continuing to do that regionally is important. As I said, the local leaders at the parish of Jefferson and the city of New Orleans have worked overtime to expand some of those bus routes and help people get to work. We need to keep doing those kind of things. The Regional Planning Commission is a great place for that to happen, but we need to also continue to draw down federal resources to be able to expand transit, not just here in the region, but across the state. And there are many opportunities to do that. We just got to stay focused and stay together and try to compete regionally for those things, because I think on our own we're less likely to succeed. But more connectivity is destiny, and it's not about where we've been; it's about where we're going. And connectivity is the type of investment that gets us there.
Yeah. And from Jefferson's perspective, basically, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, we absolutely watch the airport and monitor those flights and look forward to any expansion and some of the projects that are ongoing. But in addition, one of the other things I was going to touch on is exactly that, the regional, the ability for that flow. We have so many of our residents, many of which are in the hospitality industry, that depend on the public transportation system. So some of those previous talks and ability to come together and work together for regional transit, as it were, are extremely important. And we continue to look forward to how Jefferson and Orleans leadership can further bring that unfold. Because again, it's so significant within our workforce and just in general for moving the people about. I mean, there's thousands of the workers daily that are dependent on that transportation system. But not only that, when we have guests that are staying in Jefferson Parish, if it's such a smooth, easy transition to hop on one of the public service buses and get into downtown New Orleans or vice versa, that's a win. Yeah. So we continue to look forward to that. And then we touched already a little bit on the Amtrak. I know there's been some discussion on the possibility of it expanding into Baton Rouge. So that's something that we're curious about. We'll keep an eye on and see if that develops. I know there's some pretty good, pretty large obstacle that may be in their way in relation to making that come to fruition. But it's something to keep an eye on. Yeah. See how that may affect our infrastructure and travel.
All right. Okay. So for all of you, looking ahead a little bit, evolving technology. Tell us about how AI is affecting the travel industry and traveler experiences from your respective vantage points. We'll start with you.
Well, I think it's kind of it's multifaceted. I mean, for us, it can have its challenges. From just looking at it on its surface, the core surface of it, from a visitor going to a website that is so immersed with an experiential approach, but AI is now kind of taking that jump and kind of cutting us off, right? At the path before many can get to our personal sites or many of our service industry sites. So that can be a challenge, but we have to just stay abreast on making sure what is out there, what is fed through AI, and that it's accurate information, and then we're also using that technology to our advantage and using it smartly and being able to have a further reach. It's allowed us to really kind of take a step back and look at how we can better lay out what our plans are and how we speak to our potential visitors. Mm-hmm. So we are using it in that capacity. Obviously, there's there's many ways in which it can be, and we're still it's unfolding. Yeah. As we speak, it's challenging. It's very fast paced. It's definitely an area in which we have a dedicated staff that is keeping up with it and trying to work within those boundaries that we can. And but we look forward to it. It's just we see it as not the enemy by any means. It's just another means that we're going to take it and look at it as an asset, and how can we use that as such? Yeah. Within the industry.
Yeah, because a lot of folks are concerned about how it's going to impact their employment, and so.
Yeah, and recently, I was sat in on a webinar, and basically, as it said, it's not so much that it's going to take over a person's position. It's how much you are able to embrace what comes with AI, right, and how that personnel or that staff can really get the full understanding and have the capability of embracing that and controlling that and taking that ability to be kind of you're the professor and it's the student, instead of letting it lead you. You take that lead role in how you're going to control what that message is and how you're utilizing AI. That's extremely important.
Okay. It's legit.
Yeah, we've tried to lean into it on our website. So we've partnered with a company called Mindtrip AI. That's one of the leading travel platform AI tools out there, and we've got a dedicated, kind of bot on our website that people can engage with. And I think certainly it's a tool to learn more about communities, and in the environment we're currently in, as was stated, I mean, we've spent a decade or more growing search optimization to only have that all undercut in the swift kick from Google AI, where they just kind of cut everybody's search off and they scrape the information from our site and share it. That makes our site even more important in some ways, because we want to be the trusted source for information about New Orleans, and that we want to continue to curate that is really critical to driving our mission home. So many people, millions a year, engage with the site and get information. We know that the more time they spend on the site, the more likely they are to spend in the city itself. And so we need to continue to optimize what we're doing for these agentic tools, so that when they are scraping sites, they scrape ours.
Right.
One. Two, we thrive on authenticity here. So there is a temptation, and certainly in creative circles, to use AI to enhance creative, and we want to be really thoughtful about how we do that. And so our team's using AI quite a bit in a variety of different ways, but often as a kind of a brainstorming and thought partner, and then ultimately humans have got to cultivate that information and that content. So I mean, there's a lot there. I think there's a big upside to it. I see on the meeting planning side and other things that there's a lot of value that can be created, some simplification of RFP processes and other things. But with that comes risk. And so we certainly want to be, we're leaning into it. We're trying to lead on it in our industry and make sure that we're positioned to be able to thrive for our community. There are some environmental concerns with it. Those get voiced by some of our customers regularly. And so it's really interesting to see how this continues to unfold. I think it's a phenomenal technology, and as I said, our team is encouraged to utilize it as often as possible to enhance their job performance, but certainly not to replace it.
Right. You mentioned millions of people checking your site. I just wanted to let you know that some tourists from Australia heard me say New Orleans and Company on our coverage. And they told me that they found out about New Orleans through your site.
NOLA.com.
Yeah. It's pretty.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, our team works on it obviously all day, every day. Yeah. And a lot of itineraries.
Around the country and around the world.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And also a lot of locals. Yeah. Like I hear a lot of locals who say, I check in NewOrleans.com to see what I'm going to do this weekend. Yeah. And so we take that seriously, but certainly it's an emerging, there are emerging changes in the landscape. And so at this point, as long as we can maintain our credibility and our positioning, then we can be the source of that information. But we also see with other AI searches and other things, like other sources pulled into that, sometimes credible, sometimes not. Yeah. And you want to keep kind of training these tools to draw down the information that is closest to the locals, closest to the people who are providing the services, closest to our members, so that we can continue to drive that benefit. But it's certainly a challenging technology in some ways.
All right. So,
so I kind of dove into it a little bit earlier, right? It was mentioned how some individuals are worried about, is this going to replace my job in the future? So it's kind of vice versa for us. We're using AI for safety metrics, emission trackings, go green, different things of that nature, right? Well, by doing that, we're able to have more jobs available, because we have a team that's what they sit there and do 24/7, literally. They track, they look at all of our safety metrics in real time to understand where we're at and where we're going. So it's AI is, it's different. Everybody's learning as we're going with it, right? You have a lot of people that are traveling that use AI to plan their entire trip, right? You have AI that's, like Walt mentioned earlier, that's through RFP processes now. So you have a lot of different things, and I think we're all adapting with it. But yeah, I mean, we're diving into it as well to use it where we can, whether it's through bookings or dispatching, or just we found that the safety metrics of of using AI has been phenomenal for us. It tracks our equipment 24/7, lets us know where we are on our green initiatives, and then also safety for the drivers. It monitors the drivers to make sure they're in good health and safety, and the passengers as well. So we're diving into it. It's going to be a learning curve for everybody, and we're just all going to have to adapt as we learn more.
Yeah. So for all of you, finally, the horizon. Looking ahead to the next 2 or 3 years, what upcoming project, event, or trend are you personally most excited about for this region?
Start here. Well, don't have really just one or two. Of course, in Jefferson, along with my colleagues, we are keeping a close eye on what's the Shrine on Airline, formerly the Zephyr Stadium, with a bit of interest there to see how that may come to fruition with multi-use in mind. There's also some conversations going on about renovations of both the venue itself and the land at Hope Haven on the West Bank. So that'll be exciting to see. And of course, the American Cruise Lines Riverboat has recently signed an agreement with the city of Kenner that they would be adding them to their cruise line stop at the end of Williams in our historic river town. Right. So that may come as early as 2027. So that's exciting because that will be a game changer for that community and some of the surrounding areas within the city of Kenner. So those are three kind of high notes, and then one in particular that's was brought to our attention, and we're happy to be a part of the conversation. We're working with Congressman Scalise on designating our National Historical Park to a national park. So that is underway, in progress, and that could be a game changer as well. As it's kind of layman's terms kind of explained, when you have a historical park, it's kind of the attendance of maybe a museum, versus a national park can be more around a stadium type attendance. So that's something exciting. We'd like to see how that would unfold. Those things, as well as there's also the new food incubator that will be on the grounds of Churchill Park on the West Bank, which for all of us talking about regionalism, that is geared towards the small food business, which can be a game changer for our culinary scene. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to see all of those things coming up on the horizon and keeping a close eye.
Wow.
That's going on.
That's a lot. What do you say?
Yeah.
So a lot of great things. Obviously,
Yeah.
we want to keep building on our strong tourism economy here in the region. 2027 is going to allow us to host one of the largest international conferences on the planet. It's called IPW. Mm-hmm. It's a U.S. travel event. And each year, a city is chosen to be the face of the United States for 5,000 of the most important international bookers. Next year in 2027 in May, New Orleans will be that host. And so this is billions of dollars in future bookings for international visitation, and also just the opportunity to put our best foot forward and welcome, our partners from across the country to try to sell international visitation to the United States. So that's exciting. There are a number of other industry type events that will help us build and drive conventions, conferences, and meetings that we're working to attract over the next couple of years. I think those things are going to come to fruition, but they're not public yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about all those things. But I'll also say that what I'm also excited about are not necessarily just tourism-related things. There are three major things that I think could and should happen in the next couple of years that are game changers for our region and will uplift our tourism and hospitality community in a way that is significant and doesn't just rely on that as the source of it. It's a diversification of the economy. The Louisiana International Terminal that the Port of New Orleans is leading down in Bylot, that is a game-changing logistical investment that makes us a strategic hub for cargo traffic that will change the economy of our region for the better. The Charity Hospital redevelopment that Tulane is leading and working with the city and the state on is the creation of an innovation hub there, and the growth of our higher education community attracts more research, more development, and from my perspective, more corporate, more medical, and more other meetings that add value to those things. And then finally, the Omni Hotel project, $550 million investment by a private investor out of Texas, whenever somebody in Texas wants to open their checkbook and write a $550 million check, I think we need to figure out a way to capitalize on that.
Right.
And so, again, will help us to attract 25 more conferences and meetings and events a year with just the addition of that property because of the competitiveness of the landscape nationally. So, I mean, those three game-changing investments to me give us an opportunity as a region, as a city, as a state to enhance the economic prosperity of the people who live here and uplift our tourism and travel industry in a really essential way. And then the final thing that I'm excited about is the continued development along the riverfront. So we just opened Goldring, Waldenburg Extension Park over at the Governor Nichols Wharf. We have another stage of that development to come next door. And as that expansion continues, it's just another great example of when you create access for locals and residents in a really beautiful and robust way, it adds value to the broader economy, to quality of life, and ultimately will help us attract more events to the riverfront, reconnect our people to part of the reason why we're here, which is the Mississippi River. So those are just a few things that I'm excited about. But as you can tell, I'm pretty bullish on our community. I think the best days are ahead of us, and I'm hopeful that with more collaboration regionally, we'll just have even better outcomes for our businesses and for our partners.
Yeah. That expansion worked out great for French Quarter Fest.
It did. It was spectacular.
It sure was. It sure was. Corey?
Yeah. So I mean, from our end, obviously we'd love to see the big events that come here, whether it's the Super Bowl, Final Four, WrestleMania, maybe whatever it may be. We love the big events, but also we want to really dial into the more local events too. We're seeing an increase in wedding bookings. People are getting married here. That's wonderful. The youth development, we have the sports complex there. We have other youth development movements that are coming down here, just for them to really dive into the culture. So all of those are exciting things to see for the next 2 or 3 years. See where they take us and see what other things are on the horizon that we can get involved with, community impact programs and whatnot that can help promote not only but both parishes and in the surrounding areas as well.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. I want to extend a huge thank you to Terry Raquel, Walt Leger III, and Corey Rosales for joining us and sharing their insights. As we've heard today, the success of our region's tourism industry takes serious coordination, innovation, and a shared love for Southeast Louisiana. Whether you're a local acting as an everyday ambassador or a visitor experiencing our culture for the first time, thank you for supporting our community. Happy National Travel and Tourism Week, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.